Hello everyone and welcome to the Activist Lawyer podcast. My name is Sarah Henry and I'm your host to this podcast, which offers a platform for lawyers to share their story and their journey into law and activism. Our guests will discuss the challenges and highlights of their work, as well as important cases, opinions on legal and political matters, and will offer up advice and tips for anyone interested in pursuing a career in human rights law, public interest law, or criminal justice. The Activist Lawyer podcast is brought to you by the Granite Podcast Studio. Thank you so much for listening. So today, something a little bit different for the Activist Lawyer podcast. Zahraa Al-Jameel has actually written a few pieces for our blog. She is a student who is aspiring to be a human rights barrister and is also a content creator on autism, advocacy and intersectionality. So she goes into her work, which started at a really young age, her advocacy, and how it is helping to kind of shape her career and what she wants to do professionally. But to be honest, she's done so much as it is. And she is quite active on social media and has also published some articles and has a series called Jump into Justice that you can follow on when we share the links to her social media accounts. So I hope you enjoy this. It was lovely to interview Zahraa. We've been in touch back and forth through email and through Messenger. So it's lovely to actually get a chance to speak to her and learn about her work. And I think it's an important issue that we've kind of touched on here and there from people who have, become barristers or solicitors and already entered into their chosen legal career and profession. But Zahraa is looking at that and looking at accessibility to law and also accessibility to the profession. So have a listen and please share, and of course follow us on our social media, Instagram and LinkedIn, etc. I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Zahraa Al-Jameel. Zahraa, hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Great. Well, look, thank you again. Zahraa, we've been in touch before because you have done a little bit of writing for our blog and it was so interesting, and I'm really keen to learn more about you and more about your work. So it's great to have this opportunity to actually chat with you, albeit through the Zoom platform. But let's get stuck in, and maybe you could share a little bit about your legal journey, what's, kind of inspired you to go into human rights law and what has inspired you to go down the route of wanting to become a barrister.
So I just simply didn't know what to study. And when I could not satisfy my parents' dreams of being a pharmacist, and they realized I was better at English than maths, they were like, you know what, just get into law. I think you'll do amazing at it. So I'm like, okay, why not? Because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So why not? Go figure. I've had ups and downs with being a lawyer. There were multiple moments where I'm like, I want to specialize in this area of law and this one and everything in between. I think at one point I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. Yeah, no. Big regret. I just said I want to be a corporate lawyer just to get the money so people can just be quiet. Compared to human rights law, it's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. Sure, it's not that well paid, but it's still something. And I find it quite ironic that for a law that is completely mandatory and absolutely essential, like right now, is getting paid very little compared to corporate law, which is, I'm not saying corporate law isn't something we need. It is something that we do need and it is important, but really? Is it more important than human rights? Without human rights, there would be no corporate law.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I think, I can't remember the exact moment where I said I want to be in human rights, but I think once I started my disability advocacy and autism advocacy, I like to say by the age of 15. So at the end of year 10.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, you know what? I want to start standing up for people's rights and everything in between. And it has been a journey, and it still is quite a journey, as well as for being a barrister. I love talking. I love talking to people. I love having an audience. I also love the gown and the wig and everything. Compared to a solicitor, I don't want to stay home, stay in the office and just like work on a laptop. I don't like being behind the scenes. I'd rather be out the front,
Yeah.
which is great because at one point I said I wanted to be an actress because I love being out there and getting my voice out. And it's been ingrained in me since childhood. Like, I don't like staying quiet. I want you to listen to me and know what I'm about to say. So go figure, I might as well just be a barrister of human rights law. It's not just human rights I want to specialize in. I want to specialize in many areas of law, like public law, government law, international law. And I'm starting to sort of read a little bit about land law. That's a bit of a consideration.
Wow.
But anything to do with like human rights and protecting people and everything in between.
Excellent.
And who knows, maybe I might do corporate, but so far it's not for me.
So far, there's a hold on the corporate law world. Very good. Well, like, that's as good as reason as any. But Zahraa, clearly you've done so much, as we said, very, very early on. So how did you progress, I suppose, going on to college? And did this kind of stay with you, this type of advocacy? And what came out of it?
Year 12 and year 13, I would like to describe it as like the peak of my advocacy. That's when it really hit. And I hosted a club called the Thriving Neurodivergence Club. And it took place every Tuesday lunchtime. And what I do is I would go through the slides and I would just educate teachers and students alike about what is neurodiversity, but when I say what is neurodiversity at that time, I was only focusing on autism because that's what I knew from personal experience. And then it didn't get that much people. The most it got was around like 13, 14 people, but nonetheless, even though it didn't get that many people, it was still deeply appreciated. And it got to a point that my head of year in year 13 asked me to do a speech advertising it. And I remember I was like, no, I walked out the door. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. And then after some time, that's when I realized I love to do public speaking. So I got my speech, rehearsed it, and to advertise it to everyone. And I guess they were impacted by it, but if they were, then they would have kind of joined the club.
Sure.
But it's all right. Then at 18 years old, in December of 2023, I finally downloaded Instagram for the very first time. Originally to promote my book, but then over time, I got bored with it. So I was like, I'm going to move on to autism advocacy. But then again, that autism advocacy was completely whitewashed, only surrounds low support needs, autistics and everything in between. So that's until one of my favorite let me down, and I kind of opened my eyes. I'm like, wow, this is not who I want. This is no longer I aspire anymore. And I think people know who I'm on about the second I say that. So it's like, if you know, you know. And after that, that's when I realized, okay, from now on, I'm going to focus on the intersectionality of my autism advocacy. I'm not only going to be talking about my experiences as an Arab autistic woman, but I also want to uplift many marginalized autistic people and bring in politics as well, because everything is political.
Yeah.
My series called Don't Be an Ass, which basically stands for Ask the Supremacist Dinner.
Oh, very good.
Again, yeah. It just mainly talks about how to be a good advocate, especially if you're autistic, without perpetrating aspect supremacy, because that's what I've been seeing so much online. And also looking back when I was younger, I've been seeing this discourse quite a lot. Yeah. And it does more harm than good. But most importantly, it's all about intersectionality and just being a good advocate.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all it is. And I'm happy. I love talking about it. It opens my eyes so much. That's when you realize you can connect the dots. And it led me to becoming more confident and standing up for myself and others, which is something that you want in the legal sector.
Exactly.
And also with social media, there's, as I said, there's experience, which is linked to what the bar wants. They want experience. And especially with someone who's interested in human rights, that is like a very perfect example because hey, as we said, it's accessible to everyone, right? Yeah. Like social media is accessible. And when I did the jump into justice articles, I'm starting to sort of learn the skills of legal research and what laws apply and trying to sort of read and understand it, which is, again, what the law wants. So it's all about building skills from here on out. And that's it. There you go.
That's it.
And
That's a lot.
here
Good.
I am.
Good work.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to hear, and you were so young when you started your advocacy. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about that? Because I know reading some of your work that you have, focused on intersectionality and ensuring marginalised autistic voices are heard. So why is this so important to you, and why did it become so important to you at such a young age?
So interestingly, when I was 15 years old, I didn't even know what intersectionality was. I was kind of referred to the whitewashed autism community. So from when I was 15 till around 18 years old, so for 3 years, I was sort of like advocating in a whitewashed way. And it is quite inspiration porny, doesn't really consider higher and medium support needs, and they also didn't consider like Black, brown, Indigenous, and Asian people who are also autistic. It's just mainly like very whitewashed, very low support needs. I think what drew me into the whitewashed autism community was that I'm low support needs, and a lot of them who are white and they have such massive platforms, they tend to show that they have low support needs, and we kind of like agree on very similar things. And a lot of it is also down to like, and I remember this timeline of 3 years is basically just me being an ASPI supremacist until I didn't realize what that was until I see a post about it or something. And I was like, oh, I need to fix it up. But from 13 till 18, I had no social media. I was not that interested. I was not a social media person. Like, I had no Instagram, nothing. Like, the only social media I had was like Snapchat, but I don't use it anymore. And I think by the time I was around 13, 14, I stopped using it completely. I'm like, oh, I just had enough of it. So the way that I advocated for autism at 15 was that I noticed that in pastoral, for my American citizens, a pastoral is basically a half an hour session of where you talk about like extracurricular, like things that are outside of like academic subjects. So for example, we get taught lessons about drugs and money, and I can't remember like pastoral, that's how useless they are, so to speak. And everything in between. It's just about like, I guess, life skills in a way. And then when I was 15, at the end of year 10, I realized that there was no talk about disability. There was no talk about autism or anything like that. So I raised that issue with my head of year, and she agreed to it. And I made a PowerPoint slide about it, which I think looking back, I would 100% disagree on like what has been said. Because again, it's whitewashed. There's lack of intersectionality and everything in between. There's that. But nonetheless, I did make the PowerPoint slide, and I had to make some edits here and there, and it's a constant like bringing the USB stick back and forth, until finally, around April, just before GCSE started, so when I was in year 11, so at 16, they finally put up like a PowerPoint slide talking about autism and everything in between. And I remember it was around like Autism Day, also 2nd of April. And I can't remember how it was received, but a few people who are very mature at like 16, they kind of know what's going on. They're like, oh, we admire you for this. Like, thank you for teaching us. And that's very respectful of you. But in that classroom, in that form, in the morning classroom just before lessons, people were just not interested. But my tutor at the time, she quite literally said, guys, I want to go through this very slowly. I don't want to rush it. So I'm like, kudos to you. Like, thank you so much for this. But yeah, it wasn't that well received by that much of my year group. So then fast forward to year 11. I also wrote a book about autism at the age of 16. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it took me 7 months to write that book, which is the shortest time span. And I was doing it while I was doing my GCSEs.
Wow.
and I got 2 9s.
My goodness.
Like top grades in English. And I'm like, wow, like to this day I don't believe it. I'm like, that 16-year-old me, she's so happy. So the book, it's called Writing About Timeless Butterflies, and it talks about two autistic people who are very different. And I think this was when I started to sort of start dropping a little bit of intersectionality. But then again, I still did not know what that was. I was like, I don't want to just talk about white autistic people. I want to talk about Black autistic people. I want to talk about Black high support needs autistic people. I think I quite literally added like a side character who is Black and has high support needs and was nonverbal. Mm-hmm. So I was like, wow, just wow. And those two characters, they're called Ray and T, short for Tegan. And they're very different because Ray is like an extrovert, T is an introvert. I think if I tried to look at them now, I would probably assume that T falls on a level of like medium to low support needs, whereas Ray, he's more of a low support needs autistic person. So it just talks about their lives and like a friends to lovers kind of story. And it's not just about them, it's about like the people around them. Like T's got two older brothers who are twins. And whereas Ray, he's got a stepsister called Cherry, whose actual name is Cheryl. And he talks about his like difficulties of also suffering with seizures whenever he has a meltdown. I know it's not what that is about. It's called PNES. So that's sort of when I started to discover like maybe I could add in like a couple of disabilities while talking about autism. And talks about his struggles about losing his dad and having to join a new family. Whereas T, she sort of struggles with the loss of her mom, her dad having Alzheimer's, and everything in between, and the family going broke, her ableist auntie and ableist cousin. Like, it's quite a lot. So it's basically like this realistic. I was trying to provide like a realistic version of like, look, this is what autism is. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. It's not always Sheldon Cooper or inspiration porn, whatever. It's just autistic people being autistic people. But, and I always wanted it to get published, and I kind of stopped pursuing its publication once I downloaded Instagram. I started to lose a bit of interest in that. So there's that. That was year 11.
There's just
and also
that.
not to mention
a tiny little thing to throw in there at that a child writing a book about autism and intersectionality. So impressive.
Yeah, thank you. And bear in mind that book was the 5th book that I wrote. The first one I wrote was at 12. The second one was at 13. The third one was during lockdown. The fourth one was also during lockdown. So I guess that book became like a big bang because I remember what really inspired me to write Writing About Timeless Butterflies was I think you've heard of Sia and the controversy that she did when she was writing her making her autism movie called Music.
No.
Oh my God. At that time, it was so bad. Like, it was so messy. Oh my God. And I kind of fell onto the bandwagon of like, yeah, guys, autistic people don't act like this. But then if I look at it now, yes, the portrayal of Music was offensive, but at least to sort of try to sort of portray like what a high support needs autistic person looks like. But there were so many controversies surrounding it. Like, I don't remember much, but I remember one of them being that she casted Maddie, who is not autistic, to play not only an autistic character, but a high support needs autistic character. And so that was a very big, massive issue right then and there. So, and then I think I saw this controversy and I was like, that's it. I'm writing my story. End of. I've had enough.
To think of somebody so young who's really examining and focusing on these issues, both from a culture perspective, I suppose, as well, in terms of the music and what's happening around you, you know, kind of moving on from COVID and the environment around you there.
In terms of the legal aspect, I would say the skills that I gained from my experience during high school, as well as like doing my advocacy online on social media is that being able to write, I was able to sort of look at the camera and like talk about it, especially like controversial issues. And that links in well with the legal sector because you need to sort of provide your own opinion and everything in between. One thing I'm trying to develop is sort of like try to provide evidence into the statements I'm making, which is something that's very, very relevant into the law. And overall, I think it's just about enjoying the idea of like advocating for people and everything in between, because like as part of human rights, you know, you gotta sort of like advocate for them. And I don't just talk about autism. I talk about many other things outside of it. I talk about politics. I talk about human rights law, etc. And because all of this is connected, and you know the famous saying, "We're not free until all of us are free."
Yes, absolutely. And I know you focus on accessibility as well in your writing and your work. What does that mean in terms of the law, and how important is it to review that? We have had people on the podcast before talking about this as an issue, and how, whether it's to break down kind of social and economic barriers, the importance of everybody being able to, yes, access the law, but also the profession, which is becoming more of an open topic at the moment, I suppose. And I'm just wondering what kind of your perspective is on that, and maybe people that you're kind of engaging with around that issue.
So I remember in foundation year, I wrote a point about how I think it was the jury that is not accessible to people who are blind or have low vision, or deaf people, because they need an interpreter to help them. So the question here is, if law is for everyone, then you have to make it accessible to everyone. That's part of the law, but also just common sense as well. As for accessibility to be a part of that profession, especially as a barrister, like a barrister is just like incredibly competitive. And I don't know, I just I'm currently going through a retake of one of my modules, which is, it's not the first time I retook last year another module which was taught, and alhamdulillah, I did pass. And so I just think like accessibility to the profession is something that really needs to be talked about, because I'm not academic. I've never been an academic person. My grades have always fluctuated. It's just like, and it's the hardest part about it is that, like, yes, grades do matter and experience does matter, but then sometimes it's also about the way that I need to constantly apply for internships and mini pupilages, which are so long and so tiring. And then at the end of the day, you just get like an email getting sent to you saying like, "Oh, you got rejected." Yeah, thanks. That's all my effort being put in there. So sometimes I do feel like a little bit hopeless, because I'm like, am I actually supposed to be a lawyer? Can I not just do something else that's like, I guess, easier for me to access? But nonetheless, I really think we need to have this conversation taking into account that not all of us are gifted with academia, and sometimes we generally do struggle with it, and that's okay. I always believe that, with my social media advocacy and writing, I'm already doing what I'm supposed to do. So
I was just going to
even
say
if
that.
like even if my grades are not that great or didn't hold up to the standard, etc., then hopefully, inshallah, I'll still make it as a barrister.
Yeah.
But it's definitely needs something to be talked about. And also, every single time I look at like Chambers websites, I see that a lot of them are still dominated by white men or white people who have like very upper class kind of background, private education. So I'm like, okay, so that's not very diverse. We need to listen to more people who are not part of this background, and sort of tell us like how I don't like saying how they access the system, because I just think the system is unfair itself.
Yeah.
Like, just drop it all off. That's what I'm fighting for. Yeah, that's it. There you go. That's the reason why I want to be a lawyer, just to
Just to
break the system.
hit the nail on the head there. But as you're speaking, I'm thinking, you're already doing a large part of the advocacy piece anyway, and using the tools that you have there, social media, brilliant writing and engagement that you've already at such an early age began that work, which is very often something people wouldn't get into until a later stage when they've had that kind of experience and, working on cases and all the rest. So, I mean, you're already doing a huge amount of work. And so that's really, really impressive. So you should be very, very proud of that. And I think it's great to have these conversations, to kind of look at the system and, really how calls for reform often go unheard, and it's still there. It's still very difficult to get a pupillage. We've had barristers on here who describe their journeys as being extremely, whether that was a costs issue or just getting out there, or whether it was an academic issue where they felt that maybe their grades or whatever wasn't. But there seems to be inroads, I suppose, in one way or another, but not everybody can find those, and it is extremely difficult. And I totally appreciate that. And which is why this podcast has been great in a way of just kind of exploring all journeys into law from a good diverse range of guests that we've had on it. But so thank you for contributing to that, and I wish you all the best with it. But looking at your work now, I know you have published quite a lot and you do a lot of articles. You have your own series. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that? Because we've published a little bit about it on our own website, the Activist Lawyer blog.
Yeah, so my series is called Jump into Justice. So yes, it's a Z with a capital Z to refer to my name. And basically what that series is that I'm trying to sort of promote it to like everyone so they can access the law, and to summarize it in like simple language to help them like understand like, okay, what's going on, etc. And what I mostly talk about is human rights and use the law and aspects of it to state why this is lawful, this is unlawful, etc. So the accessibility one, that was like my first ever like piece of it, and to be honest, it's kind of hard because the last thing I want to do is, because I need to understand the law myself, so others can understand it as well. So that's the hardest part about writing this, which is why I haven't done much about it since. But accessibility is something that I was very passionate about, because lately I'm seeing on TikTok that people are still debating about who gets the priority in buses, buggies, or wheelchairs. And it says in the law, it says on the bus, saying that buggies can use the space, but when a wheelchair user comes in, they take priority legally. And it's so sad that some people, especially and downright embarrassingly, the drivers themselves don't understand it or can't comprehend it. So the accessibility and the law, when we talk about accessibility, I feel like nobody talks about how it is quite literally the law, not just in the UK, not just in the EU, but internationally around the world. Accessibility is the law. It's not just a social construct that people made up. No. No. Because without accessibility, you wouldn't be getting what we're getting right now. For example, like this podcast, this audio podcast, and being able to access like online and everything. You wouldn't get that. Right now, I'm on my laptop and I'm doing it. Without disabled people, you would not even have a laptop. All of the things that we have right now are thanks to disabled people. That's who we should be thanking. And the moment we give accessibility to disabled people, that's when everybody gets their happily ever afters. Because why are you getting mad that somebody just wants to be treated the same way that you are? Do you want your rights? So if you want your rights, they need to have their rights as well. It's not a pie. It's not a pie.
It's not a pie.
One gets a bigger slice than the other. No.
Human rights are not a pie. You're so right. And look, that's just one observation of so many scenarios and examples that you can look at. But it's good that you're able to observe that and then look at the law and how it's not being applied, sadly, and what we can do about that. Just looking at your work at the moment, Zahraa, before we finally conclude, what are you studying or what are you researching, or is there anything in particular you'd like to share with us?
Well, right now I'm currently focusing on my retake, so I haven't been doing much since.
Sure.
Um, but I have been reading two books, like in the summer. I read Nobody's Girl by Virginia Giuffre, who was one of the Epstein victims. And let's just say it's not a very pleasant book. It's quite like
Heavy.
jarring.
Yeah.
Like the way that I reacted to it is, and I tell my friends this, and it's that if this is how I act when I'm reading the book, I can't imagine how I'd feel when reading the files. And I don't think I want to know what's in it. But yeah, very sad, and I hope Virginia rests in peace. Like she's done incredibly well. And the second one that I was currently reading, but I kind of stopped to focus on my retake, and it's called What If Reform Wins? And I really hope to somehow write an article on this. And I personally believe that everyone should read this book. This book is mandatory to read because it gives you the actual insight of what happens if reform takes over, wins the next general election.
Grim.
And it's not about like a constant saying like, oh, you will lose your rights, you will have this. Like, no, this is like actual scenario based. Like you will feel it.
Yeah.
Like you're in that scenario, especially if you are someone of a marginalized background, you will feel it. And it's not just about social and political aspects of it. There's even environmental as well. All of this is connected to how you will live if they ever take over. And it's important to look at it and read it and absorb it and just be like, so this is what I'm voting for. This is what I want. And I really hope this is not what you want.
I really hope.
Because spoilers, like there was a scenario of like a flooding in Bristol, and so many people have died due to like the constant fracking the Reform government are going to do, and building concentration camps.
Oh,
what does it sound like?
Yeah.
What does it sound like?
So grim. But well, have you finished the book?
No,
you're getting through it slowly.
I'm 3/4 of the book left. I'm 3/4 of it.
Okay, well, you know, I hope you get to finish it. But yeah, it does sound like grim reading. But as you said, it's important reading and something that everybody should think about, whether they're interested in rights or not, because it's just life, basically. Well, look, Zahraa, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to have a chat with you and to find out a little bit. I know that's not everything that concerns your work because you've got quite a lot going on. But let's keep in touch and share more of your written pieces as time goes on. And yes, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks everyone for joining me today. If you like the show, please remember to share and leave a review if you have a moment. And you can also check out our website, www.activistlawyer.com, where you will see some blog articles written by our guests and contributors, as well as some fabulous Activist Lawyer merchandise.
This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.